Welcome to Ohio Roots, the official podcast of the Ohio Genealogical Society. Join us as we embark on a captivating journey through Ohio's rich genealogy, history, and abundant resources. Hosted by me, OGS Executive Director Noel Poirier, this podcast brings you insightful conversations with a diverse array of guests, from OGS members, chapter leaders, and staff to renowned genealogists, historians, and influential figures within the genealogical community. Each episode delves into fascinating topics and captivating stories. So grab your headphones, hit that play button, and join us on this enthralling journey of Ohio's roots. My guest on today's episode of the OGS Ohio Roots podcast is Jeff Mathew. Jeff is going to talk to us today about the Adelphi Community Band, which is a small community band from Ross County, Ohio, that's been continuously operating since 1880 and sometimes maybe even earlier. And I wanted to talk to Jeff because they keep really good records of the band and its members over its lifetime. And I thought it might be interesting for our listeners who are researching their family members from that part of Ohio to get an idea that maybe their member or family member had been in this band years ago. So I hope you enjoy this conversation with Jeff Mathew of the Adelphi Community Band. Well, I'd like to welcome Jeff Mathew today to the OGS Ohio Roots podcast. Jeff is a member of the Adelphi Community Band out of Adelphi, Ohio. And I've asked Jeff to come on the podcast today to talk to us a little bit about the band. It has a very long and interesting history. And I think you all, as our listeners, and maybe even have family associated with it over the years, will find it really fascinating. So, Jeff, thank you so much for being here today.
Happy to be here.
So I'm going to start, Jeff, the way I start almost all of my interviews on the podcast, with finding out a little bit more about you. So talk to me about how you got your start in the Adelphi Community Band.
Well, we live in a pretty rural area. Adelphi's a very small town, around 330 people. And so we'd seen the band play before we were a part of it at local events, fish fries and stuff. But my mom was a teacher at the Centralia School, which is now Zane Trace School. And one of the band members, one of the older members, was the superintendent of the school. So we rode to school with our mom, and we were waiting after school one day, and the superintendent came out and said, asked if we played instruments, and we did at that point. And he said, well, why don't you come down and join the band? And that's exactly what we did.
So what instrument did you play, Jeff?
Well, at that time, I played trumpet, and my brother played trombone.
Was the band pretty big at that time, or was it fairly small in terms of the number of folks who took part in it?
Well, big and small are kind of relative. We're kind of obviously, again, a rural area. And the numbers in community bands change all the time based on who can attend. Probably 15 to 20. And some newspaper articles, they got credited with as many as 25 to 30 people.
Wow. I think what's fascinating, though, about the band, this particular band, is how long it's been around. Talk to me a little bit of when and why the band formed in the first place.
Well, the band has long claimed that 1880 was its start date. And there's some conflict with that, as the local towns here wrote their histories, their centennials or sesquicentennials, etc. And there was an amateur historian in Chillicothe who wrote a book about booklet about the musical groups that were active in Chillicothe area, late 1800s, early 1900s. There's more than one source that says Adelphi had a band as early as 1873. Now, why it started, I really can't give that information, but since 1880, the band's been active doing almost any kind of festival event that you can think of. So 1980 was our 100th anniversary, and now we're in our 145th year.
That's just amazing. It's interesting. I think about the timing of the band, and I wonder if there was a component of it that was made up of Civil War veterans at that time.
I actually don't have the information on that. That certainly could well have been. The band played for one of the last Civil War veterans in the early 1900s in this area. But I do not have any documents that talk about that specifically as far as why the band started.
Now, I know there's a lot of, I've been to you have a wonderful website, and I'll give everybody the link here when we're done. but there's a lot of great information on there. And then, of course, you forwarded me a really nice document. Talk to me a little bit, if you don't mind, about some of the most kind of the more significant members of the band and what they did and what they offered to it.
Sure. We've part of what our research has been about the band is to find out who all has played at some point, and there's been a number of different projects to try to do that. But our most recent research is we can identify 370 people that were musicians or directors or majorettes. We even had majorettes periodically, or drum majors. So through that time, and we know that's just a drop in the bucket for the number of people who have all played, but certainly we've had a number of really interesting musicians and interesting people. But the two that come to mind for me, one of his name is Raymond Connett. And Mr. Connett was a music educator, to be sure. He lived around Athens and taught music. He went to Kansas and taught music. He came back to Piketon, which is a very small town south of Chillicothe, south of Waverly, and taught at the local school. He also had his own piano repair and tuning shop. And he would travel around, and we have numerous articles where he would be featured teaching exercises to senior citizens so that they could stay active and fit physically, and also that would help them stay fit mentally. But the big thing that comes to mind with Mr. Connett is he was the first band director for the Ohio University Marching Band in Athens, 1923 to 1925, and he did it for free. And he's mentioned several times in the Ohio University Band has their own website. He's mentioned several times on their website to help document that. And every year since then, he never missed a homecoming parade. In fact, the band director would call him just to make sure he was able to come that year. And the second one would be, for me, his name is William Lockwood Huff, Will Huff. Now, Will Huff was born in a very small town just south of Chillicothe, and you wouldn't know if it was a town if you didn't already know it was a town. It's just a collection of houses. But Will Huff was born in 1875 and died in 1942. And in those years, he's credited with 90 to 100 marches, serenades, and novelty numbers. Now, Will Huff was a music man for sure, just like the movie, except he wasn't a con man. He took his family on the road for several years, and he would travel a multi-state area, Ohio, Virginia, etc., and he would either start community bands or he would become affiliated with them. And then any instrument purchases, music, etc., he would funnel through the Fillmore Music Company in Cincinnati. And he was gone for years at a time. But finally, around the early 1900s, he came back to Chillicothe and stayed. He directed two bands in Chillicothe, two community bands. One's called the Odd Fellows Band, and the other was a 20th Century Band. And they would do concerts on Sunday nights in the park, which is now Yoctangi Park. But pretty much whatever happened musically in Chillicothe, the Huff family was involved. They had 6 kids who all played multiple instruments. Several of them became professional musicians. He directed the church orchestra. His wife directed a youth orchestra, 60-voice choir. And his music was internationally known then. And his music is still played today. We have a lot of pieces of him from him in our library, and you can find a lot of YouTube videos of his music. He doesn't get mentioned as often as some of the other composers of that era, like Sousa, Henry Fillmore, Carl King, etc. But his music, for a lot of folks, including me, is just as good as some of the other compositions. But of all the people we've had, and we certainly had some memorable people, those are the two names that stick out for me in doing the research.
That's pretty amazing. What I find amazing too, a lot of our listeners are doing family history and genealogy, and many of them are from, the Ross County region and nearby. So I'm always very kind of curious when we hear about a gentleman like that, who obviously touched a lot of people's lives, how many of our listeners' families, their ancestors were touched by him in one way or another, in learning music or something like that. It's kind of a fascinating thing to consider. Now, the band has a long history also with the Ross County Fair, correct?
Oh, absolutely. It's the one we're very, very proud of. In 1994, the Ross County Fair recognized the groups who have been with the fair since the very start. And that was the 50th year anniversary. And there were about 15 or 16 groups that were in that list, and the Adelphi Band was one of them. And one of the local 4-H clubs was another, and that club is still going now. So we were recognized in being every Ross County Fair in 1994, and we haven't missed a fair since then. In fact, we'll be at the fair this coming Sunday to play for the harness races. So we're really, really proud of that. That's something that only a handful of people can say.
Yeah, I mean, the information you sent me as I read through it, I thought it was really kind of fascinating how connected to the community the band is, obviously for obvious reasons, but also, they maintain that connection. Hi, everyone. Noel Poirier here, Executive Director of the Ohio Genealogical Society and your host for the Ohio Roots podcast. Did you know you can help preserve the past and empower the future? Your donation to the Ohio Genealogical Society helps protect vital family history records and supports research for generations to come. Visit www.ogs.org/donate and give today. Thank you so much for your support. If you enjoy listening to the Ohio Roots podcast, we would really appreciate it if you could go to whatever platform it is that you listen and give us a good review. Reviews help us get more listeners and reach more people with Ohio Roots and what we're trying to do with the Ohio Genealogical Society. So please leave us a nice review, and thanks for listening. Now, in 1980, the band obviously celebrated its 100th anniversary. So talk to me a little bit how that was done. How did you guys celebrate 100 years of being a community band?
Well, we were invited by representatives from the Lancaster area to do a concert on the steps of the Capitol building in Washington, D.C. And, of course, we've never done that. The band hadn't done that before, and we haven't done that since. So in June of 1980, we took 2 buses full of musicians, their gear, family members, friends from the area, and we performed on the steps of the Capitol building in Washington, D.C. It kind of sprinkled during the concert, but, people are still coming and going. And for those who, like most of us, hadn't been there before, it's kind of an awe-inspiring sight to know what the buildings are that you're being surrounded with. And so we did the concert there in the morning, and then we went across the river in the afternoon and did the same concert in the town square for Alexandria, Virginia. So we had a full day of music, and it was just a blast.
I mean, it just sounds like an amazing experience for you. I mean, you've been in the band since, I believe, 1967, correct?
Correct. My brother and I started the same year, 1967.
Okay. So I have to ask, how old were you then?
I was 13.
13.
My brother's a few years older.
Okay. So you've been able to experience a lot of these great kind of milestones in the band's history over the last, what are we looking at now, 50 plus years?
Yeah. I went from being the youngest member for a lot of years, sometimes off and on. Now I'm about the third oldest. So I've gone from one extreme to the other almost.
That's how life does to us, huh?
Yeah. It's fun.
Oh, it sounds like it's been a blast. Now, you've mentioned that you've done research on the band, and are there particular records of the members who were in the band that you keep that someone could reach out to you if they were curious if a family member or an ancestor had been in the band?
Oh, absolutely. First of all, anything that I found is on the web, is on the band webpage. And we've made specific, did a lot of research based on what we found. So like the 370 names, there's a list of all the musicians that we found. So it's its own separate list. What year that we know for sure they were involved. It's not a comprehensive bio, but at least that, John Smith played this year for sure and played this instrument or that instrument, etc. So anything that we found is on the web. The band kept its own official records through the years of the musicians who played, what year, what event, and we've been able to find some of those. There's still a lot of those records out that we haven't, but anything that we found is on the web for people to see. And we've done a lot of the original research, again, like pulling out the musicians' names. We've pulled out a list of all the different events we've played at, because that's kind of interesting too. All the festivals, all the birthday parties, all the corporate events. So everything's available. If we have it, it's for people to see. And it's all free. We don't charge anything.
Yeah, and I think that's an excellent, I perused the website for a little while the other day, and there are an enormous amount of resources there. Some great photographs, both old ones and newer ones. You can actually listen to the band on the website, which I think is great. So yeah, I mean, you've done a really nice job getting the information about your band out there. And certainly you got enough of it out there that one of our listeners recommended that I reach out to you to chat with you. So I think that's kind of what led to this conversation in the first place, was them discovering your band and all that you've been doing over the last 140 plus years now, I guess. So what is the band up to now?
Well, we're up to a lot of the same, really. The list of our jobs, some years we would do 30 to 36 jobs. But, small festivals, they quit, and then they start back up, and then they don't have money and those kinds of things, and or they just move on to different kinds of entertainment. So we're now down to about 9 jobs, 9 performances a year. We still practice, although that's harder. Because if you know a musician, the odds are they play in more than one band, and that's what happens here. So everyone's busy with summer events and family events and other bands, and so we're still pretty much the same. We practice periodically. We go out and do pretty much the events that we do still, like the fair, we've done for decades. And one of them is Pumpkin Show. Very proud of that as well. We know from our research that our first year at the Pumpkin Show, Circleville Pumpkin Show, biggest event in this area for sure, our first year was no later than 1925. So this is another anniversary of sorts for us with the Circleville Pumpkin Show. But we've been to Asheville's 4th of July since the 1950s. We've been, a lot of events we've been 70, 80 years, and those events aren't even around anymore. So we're still doing a lot of the same things. We've done Memorial Day services in Hillsville and Adelphi since early 1900s or about mid-1900s. So we're doing a lot of the same jobs we've done. We get asked to do more jobs, and sometimes it's hard to get on the musician's schedule. So some of those we've had to turn down, unfortunately.
So if somebody wanted to learn more about the band or even reach out to you about possibly joining the band, can you give us some background on where they can go?
Oh, absolutely. They can go several places. One, there's a contact page on the band website, which has my name and my email address. And certainly reach out, and I check. I'm not like some of those people that only looks at email once a week or once a month. I'm on it several times a day to deal with band business and other things. So happy to help. If it's someplace we can meet up personally and to share, because I'm a horrible typist, that's great too. Happy to do that. We also have a number of some resource information on the webpage about if you want to join the band, here's kind of what you can expect and what we do. And we are happy to share. We try to recruit all the time. And so our band is pretty unique for the music that we play. So a lot of folks really get attracted to the music, and as opposed to some other bands get involved in. So we're happy to help. Happy to meet with them in person if they want. We'll give them their music and tell them when our next practice is. We're happy to bring anyone else along that wants to be a part of us. Several things, I guess, I would mention offhand. There is no joining the band. And if you look at community bands, at least around Ohio, they are in all extremes of doing something. Some of them, you have to audition, you have to be invited, you have to have recommendations. If you miss a practice, that's bad. We're just happy to see you whenever you can make it, because life is busy. We're a volunteer group, and we don't charge you. In fact, we don't want you to really buy something, have to buy anything. We don't have instruments for you, but we try to make it as easy as possible, and we're just happy to see you whenever you can come. We have a gentleman originally from Lancaster, but he now lives in Pigeon Forge, retired, and he comes up every year for the Fairfield County Fair because he has family. So we see him once a year. Our absolute oldest active member, has over 75 years in the band, and he lives south of Chicago because that's where his career took him when he graduated college.
Wow.
So he comes back. He's active in bands there still, but he comes back for Memorial Day observances and the Pumpkin Show, and he was here in May for Memorial Day. Fully expect him for Pumpkin Show because we'll be back at Pumpkin Show again. So we understand that life is busy and other folks have other requirements, but if you like our music, you're going to be fine. And we will find an instrument part that will fit your skill level and your interest level. So you don't need to buy anything to come play with us. We make it as easy as possible. We're basically a white shirt, black pants, and we don't have a special shirt. So they're happy to. I'm happy for them to contact me. Happy to share whatever information I can and point them to resources. Give them a heads up, and we'll make sure they get the music. And happy to see them whenever they can come.
That's great. Well, Jeff Mathew, thank you so much for joining me today to talk about the Adelphi Community Band. It's wonderful that there are organizations like yours out there that are kind of continuing to pass through generation after generation of people. So thanks for joining me today, Jeff. I appreciate it.
Well, I'm glad to be here. Always glad to talk about the band.
Well, I want to thank Jeff Mathew for joining me today on the OGS Ohio Roots podcast to chat about the Adelphi Community Band from Ross County, Ohio. I found that to be pretty interesting. I hope you did as well. If you'd like to learn more about the Adelphi Band, you can do so by visiting their website. It's adelphiband.weebly.com, adelphiband.weebly.com, and you can go there and you can listen to the band. You can look at the resources they have on who the members were in the past, and I think you'll really enjoy paying the site a visit. So again, thank you to Jeff Mathew for being with me today on the OGS Ohio Roots podcast. Curious about your family's Ohio past? The Ohio Genealogical Society is your gateway to uncovering generations of family history. Whether you're a seasoned researcher or just starting your journey, the OGS offers expert resources, local chapters, exclusive online records, online and in-person programs, and a passionate community ready to help you. Join today and bring your family story to life, because your family's history matters. Visit ogs.org to start your discoveries.
The Ohio Roots podcast is brought to you by the Ohio Genealogical Society, the premier gateway for discovering your Ohio family history. Hosted by OGS Executive Director Noel Poyer and edited by Luke Poyer. Theme song is Beautiful Ohio, recorded by Bob Stanley and his orchestra in 1944. To learn more about joining the Ohio Genealogical Society, visit www.ogs.org.